The Athletic.
Is any team in the MotoGP paddock a better story than Aprilia? From absolute laughing stock to a sort of title contender, and now perhaps the winner of the 2025 rider market with who it signed at a time when other teams, for instance Ducati, might be losing some of their secondary prospects, and who knows how some of the changes other teams have made will actually shake out. Aprilia have been an absolutely fascinating storyline in MotoGP for the last few years, and probably even more so than ever, having signed Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi for next season. This is the Race MotoGP Podcast, and we've been promised an interview with Aprilia team principal Massimo Rivola for basically absolutely ages, haven't we, Simon Patterson and Val Khorounzhiy? And every time we were going, we're going to plan this one in, Aprilia would be like, can you wait, because we'd kind of like to sign a rider first. And we get a little bit frustrated about the planning we had to redo, and then they signed some really notable riders, and we're like, okay, that was worth waiting for. But you guys finally got to sit down with Massimo ahead of the German Grand Prix at the Sachsenring. What were you looking for from the chat when you finally got it?
So I think the first time we asked about this was maybe Le Mans, like that far back, and it's just been like kicked down the road by Aprilia, for 2 months, because we were in the middle of this crazy silly season where they had lots happening. But the good thing is that they have a good PR team. That if they promise you something, they generally deliver, which they did. And the other good thing is that we know whenever we sit down in front of Massimo Rivola, he generally makes quite a bit of time for us and is quite open and honest about, what's going on in his world and how he sees things. And I think we got a fairly good take on that, as we usually do from him. He answered all the questions we wanted to hear from him. He gave good answers to all of them. It would be nice if every team boss that we spoke to was as available and as open. And yeah, all in all, I think interesting chat as it always is with the Aprilia team boss.
Well, let's get on with listening to it then. This is Massimo Rivola chatting with Simon and Val. Like I say, it was recorded ahead of the German Grand Prix weekend. Now, a lot of what he talks about hasn't changed since then, but one big point that you might notice is that Miguel Oliveira is being discussed before he had his kind of mini breakthrough Sachsenring weekend of getting a lot more competitive again. But as we'll discuss after the interview, a lot of what Massimo said about Oliveira and the Trackhouse situation certainly hasn't been changed by that result. So here we go then, Massimo Rivola time. Enjoy it, and we'll chat to you more about everything he said afterwards.
Massimo, thank you so much for taking time out of a race weekend to join us on the podcast. It's appreciated. Like Antonio, the head of comms, has been saying just before we started, we've been trying to do this for a while, but I think every time
his fault, not my fault.
Well, I think no, it's your fault, because every time we got close to doing it, you had some big news that was coming that delayed a few weeks. But we've ended in this position where, before the summer break has even started,
so now we have more to talk about.
Exactly, because you've already signed two fantastic riders for next year.
Yeah.
Everything is complete for Aprilia, and it looks like 25 is going to be even bigger than 2024.
Yeah, I will say complete for Aprilia Racing, not finalized for Trackhouse. So I think just after this I will have a chat with Davide. I have a meeting with Davide Brivio, so looking forward to that. But for sure, as you said, seems to be quite promising. Obviously, it's not always ideal to change to rider on two. But when you have two names like that, I think you need to be positive, and maybe you need to be, let's say, happy to sacrifice eventually, I would say, one race at the beginning to wait for the riders to adapt to the bike, and be confident that we got two very good and young talents, maybe two of the best in the grid.
Is there sort of an expectation of, the Aprilia is clearly a very good bike now, but it is maybe not the easiest bike on the grid to get used to?
It's a good point. I'm looking forward to that. In our case, obviously, Aleix is part of the bike, so 8 years with us doesn't need much more explanation. Maverick had a bit of time to adapt. he was coming from quite a different bike. In fact, even the 4-in-line cylinder, it was quite different. And also, to be honest, when we got Maverick at the end of 21, the bike was not the current bike. So the difference of not just the bike, but the performance also was different. So if I look at the first approach that Miguel, for example, had when he tested the bike coming from KTM, he was super fast immediately. Yeah. Then we know how last year his year was, so super unlucky. And also we got very good feedback from Raul last year when he tested the bike for the first time, and I think Raul actually is showing a lot of speed. Now it's a matter for him to put everything together and have finally a normal race weekend. That so far something always happen, including his physical condition that now seems to be quite good. So obviously very, very positive, very, very thankful to Piaggio Group that gave us the opportunity to get these two super riders. Obviously, in particular, Jorge, it's a title contender so far. So in a way, we could say that if we won't be competitive, the finger should not point to the riders, maybe to ourselves. So it's a good opportunity to grow and improve the performance.
How much of this aligns with the plan before all of the silly season stuff started? Like, did you say we want a championship contender? We need one.
Honestly, I started the season thinking about having Maverick, and I kind of suspected that Aleix was going to retire. So I always said that having an Italian rider could have been a good solution. In addition to Marco Bezzecchi, I was also speaking to Enea. I was speaking to Dija, so there was also a lot of interest from them to us. So let's say that we kept the option open. But at the end, when let's say that Mugello was, we knew it was a sort of a deadline, because Ducati said from the beginning we will get a decision. So when for me also Mugello was a deadline for us to decide and to be ready, because I wanted to be ready after midnight, let's say, of Mugello, and we did in fact. Let's say thankfully Aleix decided, because also for Aleix was supposed to be Mugello, the deadline to decide what to do. Thankfully he did the race before, so in Barcelona, and that was very much appreciated and also quite understandable because he's on race. But that gave us also the opportunity to push between Barcelona and Mugello to understand what was the real market situation, and we realized that we had option really. So when we saw that there was the opportunity, we just went to very, very quickly to that. Maybe it was the fastest contract of the history. For sure, it was the quickest announcement from the signature. 28 minutes maybe from the signature to the press release. So it was very, very fast. And then with Marco was a bit, let me say, easier. In a way, not easy, because it was likely already in the air that VR46 could have got a factory bike. So, but Marco was very committed to come to us. And when you see riders committed to come to your team and pushing for that, then it's rewarding. And so I actually had no doubt about Marco. So it was a very, again, quick solution and marriage.
But there has been sort of a suggestion that Marco ticks the Italian box, but I think it's not quite that, is it? Because you could have had a Martin Vinales lineup, and there's no Italian there. So
yeah, And that was also one of the thought. In fact, the first thought behind. But we also knew that there was a bit of a risk. Let's say, unfortunately, Maverick decided to take his way, a different way. Still is showing super commitment to us, and I have no doubt that he will keep doing it at the end of the season. So at the end, it would have been the perfect lineup to have both Marco and Maverick if we consider also Trackhouse, but sometimes you cannot ask too much.
Can you tell us a little bit about the timeline with the announcement of Jorge? With that, from the end of the race in Mugello until
the end
next
of the
24
race,
hours,
in the evening, we realized that, actually, Jorge and his manager realized that Ducati was taking time. When they were at the beginning, in a way, I cannot say sure, but confident to confirm him. The meaning was you are out or you are not in the factory team.
Yeah.
So not being the factory team for him was a sort of in or out.
Yeah.
So he was out.
Yeah.
Being out, I wanted to be the first choice, and I have to say that also his good older brother Aleix play a role for sure on that, since their friendship is so huge. I mean, he spoke a lot and very well about us and a bike. Aleix genuinely think that Jorge can really fight for the title with his bike. So maybe he was very, let's say, good in convincing him. Something that is quite nice. If I think about, if I have a friend, I don't wanna his best because I love my friend and I wanna give him the best for him.
Yes.
If I suggest to come to replace what I have, I think I give him in the best. I don't wanna give him bullshit. Yeah. So it's good that he feels that he get everything to win.
Yes.
But for him, it's time to retire in a way, and he wants to his best friend to continue what is going. He did in the last 8 years with us. So maybe in the next 2 he can fulfill the project. So I think it's quite a nice story, honestly.
Aleix did say today also that, and maybe this was part of it, helping Jorge get over the line, that sort of he felt he's done what he could with Aprilia, that, over the 8 years, like his job basically is done. Obviously you can always improve, but can you see where he's coming from in a way?
Yeah, in a way, if I think the start of 22, he won a race in Argentina after 200 races in MotoGP in this Moto Mondiale, and he scored a lot of podiums and he fight for the title till one race to the end, more or less. So I think already at that time, I think he's in a way, don't make me wrong, but also in his mind his job was done. Obviously, then you get used to be so performing, then you want to win, obviously, and that is our target. 2023 was a bit also unlucky. The bike, I think it was performing better than 22. But again, unfortunately, we don't race alone. So sometimes you get yourself better, but not enough, because also the others are getting better too. 24 seems to be another step, but again, seems that again is not enough. Mm-hmm. So we need maybe more data to close the gap. I hope that we can do it next year. Also, and maybe also getting riders coming from the current best bike in the paddock. Can be helpful to us to understand better what this bike does. So, a way to improve. Yeah, you asked me about timing.
Yes.
So Sunday night. Well, first of all, in order to be ready, I asked my CFO and legal to be at the Mugello. Because I wanted to have write this, do this, and write very very racing time. And then already on Sunday night, the deal was almost done, thanks to the job done by the lawyer and to set up, to fix the numbers and and then on Monday morning, because on that night Albert Valera was leaving.
Okay.
So there was a bit of delay in communication. I said, come on, Albert, don't leave now. This for us is quite an important day. I need to leave, my plan. So we waste a bit of time because of that. But I have to say that Albert was really efficient. Yeah. Was really good. And the last details, because also we are quite a structured company as Piaggio Group, and when there is such an important contract, generally contracts are let's say important and controlled by legal, fiscal, etc., etc., etc. So this one was a bit, I would say, one of the most important ever contracts. So at the end, I think I went to Aleix Motorhome at 5 p.m. after the test. In fact, a few bikes were still testing.
Riding around the
the test was because of it was rainy, so it was not a proper test. And we signed the contracts and we finished. I came back, it was 5:32, something like that. And boss was ready with with all the tools, and at the same time he was writing the press release, and we did the stupid video, and but everything came so quickly, and we did the video just once. It's okay, don't worry, we don't have time, don't waste time. We can do better. No, it's okay. Let's move on. And here we are.
I think we got the message in the WhatsApp group. I think 5:46 to say, hey, news coming at 6. And we were like, no way. And half the media said they're already going home because the test had rained on. And it was a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, I was at the desk at home, and there was certainly some expletives in my message. It wouldn't be.
No, you know what? That the paddock is very small, and the rumors run so fast that we didn't want to have rumors moving before us. Because we were such a bomb to deliver that we wanted to be the official way to deliver. So the other side of the coin was that I didn't really find time to sit down with Maverick and speak about that, to prepare about this news. And maybe that had a bit of effect on his final decision, but I don't know. But
it doesn't sound like it from what he's been telling us. Maybe it's different.
But due to a relationship that we built in the last 2 years, for something like that, normally I would have talked to him. So it's something that personally for me, it's something that I feel I missed it. So it was a mistake, but I sacrificed the mistake for a different one. So it was a choice at the time.
I'm Diana Rossini, senior NFL insider at The Athletic.
And I'm Chase Daniel. Diana used to cover me when I played quarterback in the NFL.
And we're super excited to say our brand new podcast, Scoop City, is coming to your podcast feed of choice right as training camp is getting started.
Twice a week, Scoop City will take you inside the inner workings of the NFL, bringing you exclusive insight and access that you won't be able to get anywhere else.
We want to be your essential companion for the upcoming season, and with the help of The Athletic's stacked football newsroom, we've got a heck of a team to make that happen.
So check out Scoop City from The Athletic, wherever you get your podcasts. We can't wait to get started.
comparing Jorge in particular to Maverick, you've got a completely different rider next year. He's much more Aleix. He's much more...
I don't know. I cannot say anything bad about Maverick, to be honest. And I cannot say anything go so good or bad about Jorge, because we didn't work with him. Obviously, Aleix is describing him as such a nice guy, but the good thing is that we are used to Latin character. And I expect both him and Marco to be quite Latin, so we will have quite a hot garage next year. So I think Antonio will have a lot to do. Everybody will. I mean, when you raise the level in general and you get more pressure, you need to manage the pressure. So, but that is the way to go. So,
and this is completely raising the whole level of Aprilia by signing these two guys. Like, from the outside looking in, this is a sign that no, you're here to win.
For sure, this is also a message. Again, if Maverick wouldn't been there, it would be again a message. Yeah. I mean, when you take the leader of the championship, a potential rider that bring you the number one in it is a message. Also, if you consider that they are both 25 years old, so they have. If they do like Aleix, we will have them for the next 10 years. So no news for anymore for the next 10 years. Hopefully, it means that it works. But I mean, we need to be ready. I know, as I said at the beginning, there will be time at the beginning for them to understand the bike and for us to understand what they need to go fast. For sure, it's also an opportunity to learn something more, something new. Because if I think about when we got Maverick helped us a lot to improve the bike. Don't make me wrong, Aleix, but he also has a different, more modern riding style. Yeah. So and then there's also help for the next generation of riders that are more in that style than.
These two guys are the product of aerodynamics in MotoGP. Yeah. They only know this.
I don't like the product, or I don't like the definition.
For sure.
But for sure, riders that moves a lot in the bike, going out, they do it for
all of their lives.
For reasons not just aero, but also the way to ride the bike is changing now. Yeah. I remember that the first rider, I don't know if it was Marquez or someone before him, touching the elbow. Now the shoulder is the ultimate the ultimate style, and Jorge for sure did it a few times.
A slightly weird question, Massimo. Do you think that the 24 bike is better everywhere at every track than the 23?
It's a very good question. It's good also to have Raul with the 23, and in Silverstone we will bring him the 24. Yeah, I'm very curious about having the comments.
Yeah.
In general, in 20 races, the 24 for sure is faster than the 23.
Yes.
If in some track the 23 is faster, I don't think so. But maybe 23 is faster on some part of some tracks. Normally we see that everybody are looking for downforce in the bike, but downforce bring less agility, more rider effort to move the bike, so the bike becomes in a way heavier. You feel the feeling it is heavier. And for sure, if you look at the last race in Assen, turn 15, where Aleix did the double overtaking in 22 when he was recovering, if you remember, this time was more difficult because moving the bike from one side to the other was taking more time, it was less agile. So yes, there are some, but at the end, when you build the bike and you look for performance, you look for performance overall. So maybe you can risk to lose some. It's also interesting here that is a sort of let me say Mickey Mouse track to see how difficult it is for them to move the bike, and for sure the bike is faster in general, but a few corners maybe not.
The 25 Trackhouse riders, whoever they are, will they be on Aprilia contracts or Trackhouse?
Yes.
Aprilia.
No, sorry.
Trackhouse.
They will be on Trackhouse contract.
Right.
They will be
Both.
Trackhouse, both
Okay.
of them, yeah.
And is that already the case?
No,
right now?
now they are under Aprilia contract. Trackhouse and Davide asked me to have, let's say, to control the riders, and I'm okay with that. I mean, we started with the project, and then the project changed a lot because of Davide. But also at the same time, we want to use the experience of Davide. So it's good that the Trackhouse and Justin Marks give him a sort of white paper to fulfill the needs of them to be as fastest. So I think that they will grow a lot in the next future. As a structure also, I mean, yeah.
When you spoke after the Marco signing and you were talking about the Trackhouse guys, I think you played down the chance of having a rookie. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit? Because
it's more for Davide to ask this question. According to him, it's a scenario that is not impossible. So it could happen. This is also the first year that you have in Moto2 Pirelli.
Yeah.
And we saw that had an effect on the chassis. If you see the Bosco Scura now faster than the Calyx.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the best possible year to choose a rookie after 1 year only of new tires, but at the same time is a sort of sign of adapting faster than other riders. But
fair enough.
Can be an option, yes.
How much of a benefit has it been this year? How much of a direct benefit have you seen from having the extra 2024 bike?
For sure, I think we will have more next year when we start all with all 4 bikes. It was nice to see Raul showing very good high level of speed here and there. Yeah. As I said, now it's time to put everything together and have a normal race weekend.
Yes.
To be honest, with Miguel, it's a bit of a pity if you consider how Miguel started with us. If I think at Valencia test, if I think at Portimao as started. After Portimao, he came back, and in Austin he was already fast. And then we had Jerez and another very bad crash. Then at the end of the season, another bad crash. It's very difficult for us to understand why we are missing that last couple of tenths compared to the others. And in fact, the race pace is not so bad. It's you know that when you start behind, it's difficult to have your pace. But I still think Miguel has a huge talent. I think in a way for him, I also hope that forecast here and Saxering say that on Sunday will rain. Maybe get some good satisfaction, and he get more a little of more internal confidence and push to see himself in front, because I think I would like to see him in front.
He was a sort of a proof of concept in Valencia when he showed up, and he was 4th, I think, or something like that. It immediately looked like ooh, and then he got injured.
But in a way, I'm just not thinking about that, but maybe I indirectly, I don't know. But he's riding well. He's just missing on a bit of confidence in some fast parts. But I don't know. I have to say that, as I said, Trackhouse I think will become a better team. So maybe we need to help them more. We are trying, but we need to know each other also a bit more.
And just one last thing, and then we'll wrap it up. But looking forward with how exciting next year is going to be for Aprilia with the position you're in. potentially when it's confirmed, if it's confirmed, the takeover from Liberty coming as well. A lot is happening. A lot can change in MotoGP.
Yeah.
What direction do you want to see us going in? Where do you want to see?
Well, for sure, a lot exciting from our side, considering the lineup, but that it's a bit of a risk of, where we are really.
Yeah.
But we need to keep the focus on this year because still is a very long season. Next year, if as we think Liberty will take over, I can only see. I think this is the time to be in MotoGP, honestly, because I'm not sure that they will deliver the same performance in F1. So they will make it 5 times better in terms of audience, in terms of tickets, in terms of people attending the races. I see this year already much better attendance and on grandstands, and that is really nice. Yeah. Also, last one was more than 190,000 people over the 3 days. And again, Le Mans was a huge event, and it was really, and that's great, And what I would like to see, I know that it can sound a bit, let's say, unpopular, but some good things. I don't think we will do a copy and paste of that format, but there are few things that we need to do it. In particular to elevate the MotoGP standard for our sponsor, for our guest, for our image, in order that the MotoGP needs to be more aspirational. So if I see huge garages with a big image, at the end we deliver a show that honestly F1 is not delivering. But we need to make a step also in what we offer them, we offer to the public also on TV, not just on track. On TV, we can offer much more. We can develop more the GPS for the spectators at home. I think the radio can be something that should be introduced in a smart way. Maybe at the beginning I got the radio, but just the radio speak to the garage, and vice versa. So you start creating the culture.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that if you put the radio on that 22 animals on track, you will get for till the following races the social exploding because of beep, but you need also a bit of tech during while we are not racing. Yeah. So I think we have huge opportunities. I think we need a second race in North America.
Agreed.
Somewhere in North America, and I don't tell you obviously because we have a North American satellite team. But I think if we want to increase the level of the business, that means bringing sponsors that are different. You need to, let's say, to go to America and get the American interest. F1 made it. I think we can do it.
If you want more from Massimo Rivola, we also gave the Race Members Club, which now includes MotoGP content, the chance to throw their own questions to him, and we recorded a separate mini episode just answering those questions. That'll be available on the Race Members Club later this week, and you can join the Race Members Club either via the website itself if you go to the-race.com/members-club, or via the Patreon app or website. And if you do it via Patreon, you also get a chance to throw in questions for our post-race podcasts. Also, if you're joining the Members Club in the next few days, or you're already there, you'll also get the chance to win tickets for Silverstone's Day of Champions event, an absolutely mega thing that happens on the Thursday before the British Grand Prix weekend. Keep an eye out on your Patreon notifications and your email inbox for more details on that later in the week. Members Club is £3 plus VAT per month in, or the Riders tier rather. That's the Riders tier, which is just for MotoGP content, and there's slightly higher tiers that let you get all our F1 stuff as well. It's a chance for you to get a few more podcasts each month, throw us some more questions, and actually play quite a a big part in shaping our content as well. Every idea you throw in on the Members Club is noted down, and we're going to get through probably all of them at some point in our future. But back to the chat that Rivola had with you guys at Sachsenring. One of the things that stuck out to me straight away was Aprilia's I said in the intro that Aprilia's kind of won the rider market, which may be a bold statement given Jorge Martin has his blips and Marco Bezzecchi is having a terrible season. But Aprilia's gone from losing both its riders to signing the people who are second and third in last year's championship. And there's a lot of question marks over whether what Ducati's done will actually work out, because it's got Marquez in its factory team, but it's lost a lot of people. There's question marks about the suitability of people at KTM beyond Pedro Costa as well. Aprilia's come out of this with reason to be confident. But I was really interested how open Rivola's been right the way through about also looking at Enea Bastianini, and he threw in the fact they had quite a serious look at Fabio Di Giannantonio as well there. So have they definitely signed the right person in Bezzecchi when Di Gio and Bastianini were also on the list? What do you reckon? Is that a firm yes, Val?
No, it's a tempting question to ask. It's not a firm yes. It can't be a firm yes. It can't be a firm yes in the middle of the season Bezzecchi's having. And, after that interview was concluded on Thursday, Bezzecchi went on to have honestly a pretty rubbish weekend again at the German Grand Prix, which followed a really rubbish weekend at Assen. There's now, I think, more of an acknowledgement from Marco, although maybe I just haven't been listening very attentively, that, for all the issues that the 23 Ducati is contributing to, a big part of it is the new Michelin rear. And the new Michelin rear is not going anywhere anytime soon. They're not going to slash the grip that it's providing. So if he's having the rear push the front on this bike, who's to say it won't happen on the Aprilia? And I think, Aprilia is also well aware of that. But it is the kind of swing that you can afford to take when you've seen Bezzecchi at his best in 23. And, you kind of want a specialist like that, sort of, a low grip specialist, a mixed condition specialist, even if there's something lacking in the current fit with the formula. A guy like that can be very useful on the complicated days. But also it's a bet that's so easy to take when you've already secured Jorge Martin. Fabio Giannantonio, I would consider. And Enea Bastianini obviously would consider, and honestly, I'm surprised that Enea Bastianini hasn't been able to parlay his season into another works ride. Although I guess the KTM thing is close enough. But I can see why they picked Bezzecchi. I think Di Giannantonio, for me, as good as he has been over the last year, you could probably make the argument that Di Giannantonio of those three has been the best rider over the last 8 months, maybe, or something. I think you could make that case. But for me, he would be the third pick of the three, and then I'd have to think long and hard between Bastianini and Bezzecchi. I haven't really done that, but clearly Aprilia has, and it got its man.
It's weird for me. Bastianini is the weakest of the three at the minute, and I don't know whether that's Val's making funny faces at me. Val made a face, and I know that that's a crazy thing to say, but I don't know. It still feels like there's a little bit of something lacking in everything we've seen from him, compared to the other two. There might be a bit of recency bias in my thoughts on Di Giannantonio. I think that we're seeing him at his peak right now, probably the peak of his entire career right now, whereas that's absolutely not something that we can say for Bezzecchi or Bastianini. But I think, I don't know, I feel like the upper level of where Bezzecchi in particular is capable of is higher than Bastianini's. I think that, there's a little bit of an element of me that thinks that a factory Ducati is being squandered by him to an extent this year, because we're not seeing him deliver, I think, what everyone hoped to see him deliver. We're not really seeing what everyone, kind of expected to see him deliver, or what everyone did see him deliver in a Goscinny bike. And I don't know, he strikes me as the sort of rider that's maybe a little bit more comfortable in a satellite than in a factory. And maybe that's a factor in it, that this is just not an environment where he's working particularly well, because he's a guy that likes to do his own thing and be a bit more relaxed about how he does it. And the Goscinny setup worked really well for him in that regard. And Tech 3 might as well, if the KTM improves next year. It might actually be a good move for him, although with Austrian oversight, that might be a bit of a stretch. I don't know. I think Aprilia have made the right bet with Bezzecchi. I think we know where his problem's coming from. I think that's going to be less of a factor on the Aprilia because it's not going to be a bike that's going to be pushing the rear as much just from the nature of the engine, which doesn't seem to be as aggressive and powerful as the Ducati engine. So it's not going to be as much of a factor. And, there's a lot of people in MotoGP that say, quite openly admit that they think that Bezzecchi is one of the best riders in the grid. Casey Stoner called him the best rider in the grid this time last year when we spoke to him about it, and said that in a world without electronic rider aids, Bezzecchi would be multiple-time world champion because of what he sees in him. And I think that, with that in mind, I think this is the right choice for Aprilia. I think they've done very well out of it, and I don't think they're going to regret not signing Bastianini.
But we're not in that world. And for me, that's the main thing. We're not in the world that Casey Stoner imagined, where Marco Bezzecchi gets to exploit his best qualities. I understand what you mean, and that's where the upside comes from. But, at the moment, certainly you'd be very hard pressed to see an argument for Bezzecchi being even in the top 10 of riders in the current season under the current formula. And it's not like he's getting unlucky. It's just that, this particular set of circumstances, he is not performing. The thing is with both of them also, and I think this is important, both Marco and Enea are notoriously bad starters, I would say, but in different ways. Enea is quite good off the line, I believe, but just generally, he doesn't qualify particularly well, and then he cannot access the best of his pace. He cannot access it early in the race, whereas Bezzecchi just can't make the Ducati clutch work for him regularly in any sort of meaningful sense. So he always, this year he is qualifying badly, but it also doesn't help that, sometimes he'll qualify okay and then he'll just lose a full row at the start. With Aprilia, it's not really a place where a bad starter wants to go, but a bad starter on the Ducati and a bad starter on the Aprilia, you never really know how those things translate necessarily. I do think that sort of, I like Bastianini's fit with KTM more than I do with Aprilia, I guess. So in that sense, and I do like Bezzecchi's fit, I think, more with Aprilia than I do KTM, for instance. So in that sense, did they make the right choice? It's sort of a kind of a win-win-ish thing for everybody, in a sense.
Thing is, you've got three riders there who are in the middle of aberrations in their careers, 2 negative, 1 positive. Bastianini's whole Works Ducati stint does not really tally up with the rest of his career particularly. Well, there's some themes, but he, in terms of how good headline, how good he looks overall, he looks better before he was a factory Ducati rider.
I think all of this stuff tallies. I think all of the stuff that's happened, apart from Enea Bastianini's injury, I think is, you can trace it somehow in careers. Marco Bezzecchi was a good rider coming into MotoGP. I don't think he was a world beater. He had some really good seasons. He's also had some seasons that were just did not go. The Tech 3 KTM, was it Moto2 season that he had? That was just not good at all. And that season, it didn't look like, even with the KTM in the intermediate class being flawed, he did not look like a MotoGP prospect to me at that point. And obviously, he then spectacularly turned it around. So that's another reason to bet it. Digia, coming into MotoGP, there were flashes of something really special. And, that's the problem. We'd like all of these things to fit very neatly into, I'm not saying you specifically, Matt. I'm just saying, I would like it. I would like it to be neat because I would, even though I've been speaking for straight 2 minutes now or whatever, without really saying anything, that's the problem, because it's so hard to formulate a thesis on any of these guys, where they actually are, what to expect from them.
Humans riding bikes fast is a very wobbly topic, basically.
Yeah.
The ups and downs of what makes a rider fast, what's going on in their head, what's going on with the bike fit. I think out of all the forms of motorsport, MotoGP is kind of less linear for how you can judge a rider than almost anything else, because there's so many factors can destabilize someone. And then these days you only have to lose half a second of pace and you're absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can be very, an aberration can be so costly, and it's unusual that aberration is positive, like we've got with Digia, where he's gone from being, if you're making a list of MotoGP riders off the top of your head, he'd be the one you wouldn't remember to put in there at the start of last year. You just forget he was even on the grid. And suddenly it looks fantastic, and he's held up that form pretty well in a second team in different circumstances on a different bike spec.
I remember the Digia thing because when he and Bezzecchi were debuting and I did the preseason assessment, I was like, well, Digia's probably going to be Rookie of the Year, and then he extremely was not. It's not even close. So I still remember that bit. But also, yeah, you're completely right. This is part of the problem. Half a second over even a 2-minute lap makes you, either God or nobody. And what is half a second? Let's time half a second. Boom. That was half a second. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Yeah, and you could say that of any motorsport, but the fluctuations that MotoGP by its nature creates make that so much more profound. Except in some circumstances, you get riders that don't get those fluctuations, like Jorge Martin. And I think one of you said a minute ago that kind of if you're betting on Bez, but you've got Martin on the other bike, it kind of doesn't matter because you've still got Jorge Martin, so you're fine. My only doubt with that, and this is kind of where I wonder if Aprilia should have really gone for the kind of middle ground of a Digia. Jorge Martin worked pretty well with Johan Zarco as his teammate last year. That delivered a team's championship for Pramac of all teams. Zarco was a pretty steady top 5 fixture, experienced guy, not really doing anything too fireworksy, but quite a good foil for Martin. Frankie Morbidelli, as he gets back on the pace, is kind of getting back towards that a bit more this year, but it's very hard to judge. Bezzecchi's potentially a really, really, really near superstar rider, maybe not Martin level, but he's not a number 2. He's a number 1 point something, number 1.3 or something.
Yeah.
I just wonder if Aprilia might have got a better balance with more of a let's let Martin do the fireworks and then sign a Zarco-ish person for the second seat.
But I don't think they care about the team's championship. Basically, true. And I think what they want to maximize is still in their current position is you go for the title with Martin ideally, but if you don't, you just want to win as many races as possible rather than run 5th, 6th every weekend. I don't think that does anything for them right now. Even though maybe in theory that would be better in some sense longer term. I don't know. That's a complicated one.
Yeah. I think they've signed 2 riders and told both of them that they want them to fight for the championship, knowing that they're probably not going to fight for the championship next year. But between the 2 of them, they can probably win 10 races if things go according to plan.
Yeah.
And I think, that to me would make more sense as a pretty realistic Aprilia target for next year. We heard from Massimo, they're not really keen to set goals publicly. And I think there's probably an element of that in it, that they're maybe not even confident that they can't win a championship. Maybe that's unfair, but not sure, because they've not put a championship contender in this bike before. And I think, maybe that'll change after the first few races. We have had that conversation in the past with Aprilia where we've had a good preseason interview with Massimo Rivola and he set targets, and then you come back to him halfway through the season and, we've reassessed all those targets because... I remember doing a Qatar interview with him one year where he said that there was 4 or 5 circuits they'd like to be in the podium, and then 2 races in Aleix, 1 in Argentina. And suddenly the whole season reassesses. And I think there might be a case of, going into next year fairly open-minded to see what these guys and the bike are all capable of together.
Speaking of reassessing, we said at the start that Massimo was talking about Oliveira before Oliveira got good, effectively. The Trackhouse topic has been an interesting one every time Rivola's spoken around rider market stuff, because it's clear Aprilia itself has some pretty strong opinions about the Trackhouse lineup and what it might like to see there, but not any say. This is not just it's an independent team. It's also got a very strong, very experienced championship-winning team boss in Davide Brivio, who is allowed to do his own thing and will do. So... What was your take, Simon, on how Rivola's been speaking about the 2 Trackhouse riders in our interview and others recently?
It's weird because whenever he talks about Miguel Oliveira, he sounds exactly like you've just said, a guy who's got an interest in it but not a say. But then whenever he talks about Raul Fernandez, it sounds like he's Raul's manager trying to get him into a Trackhouse deal. He's so complimentary about him. There is a big disparity in how they talk about these 2 guys. One of them is someone that they really, really, really want to be a part of their project going forward. And the other is a guy that, hey, if you sign him, that'll be cool. And I think you get a sense of that. I don't know. I get the impression that they'll go out on a limb to do what it takes to get Oliveira or to get Fernandez to stay, but they're not that fussed to do the same thing for Oliveira. If they have to throw a bit more money to Trackhouse, if they have to promise technicians in the factory or something like that to make sure that Fernandez is there next year, he will be. because he'll get them. And if it's Oliveira, they'll say, oh, well, we'll sign Jack Miller.
It's a complicated one to assess, really, because I understand where they're coming from. And obviously, Massimo did not have the benefit of the Sachsenring results, and the Sachsenring, even though what happened at the Sachsenring wasn't necessarily like some massive aberration. And it didn't feel like a freak occurrence. It felt like Oliveira finally extracting the maximum at a track where, actually the bike was quite handy, but the two works riders were doing strange things with it. Well, obviously, Aleix was injured, Aleix Espargaro, and Maverick Vinales tried to injure himself. There was also a suggestion that it hit a pretty hard limit of performance by Sunday, which I think you could also see in Oliveira's outing. But it's, I would struggle to ascribe a breakthrough to it. I would struggle to say that as Trackhouse or as Aprilia, you want to be basing your rider strategy off that one weekend. Obviously not, right? And all of the, this is also why I was asking him, always when I ask about, the 2023 bike versus the 2024 bike, I'm interested in the technical part of that, right? But what I'm more interested in is trying to understand how the factory views it, because that's a clue to what they're actually thinking in terms of rider market, right? Because that's the operation the information they operate on when they look at Raul Fernandez's performances this season. And also, to be fair, I need that information because I want to know what I feel about Raul Fernandez's performances this season, because I'll shrug so much both of my shoulders will dislocate. All of that said, and I think there is going to be a small subset of people, or maybe a large subset of people, listening to that after the Sachsenring going, well, hey, I watched all of the Sachsenring weekend in which Raul Fernandez had like one good session and Miguel Oliveira had an entire good weekend. And they'll go, the weekend Oliveira had is better than any MotoGP weekend Raul Fernandez has ever had. They will be correct. So it's a complicated topic. It's a complicated question. And at a certain point, I understand Aprilia's thinking, but it's so interesting because I can so easily talk myself the other way, so easily, even before the Sachsenring. It's really easy.
I mean, the reality is that one good performance now and then is kind of Miguel Oliveira's entire MO in MotoGP.
But that's one good performance over a weekend versus one good session, which is Raul Fernandez.
No. But I mean, he is the guy that delivers 3 good weekends a season. He's not the guy that's going to fight for your championship. No. That's who he was at KTM as well. Brad Binder handily beat him in the championship standings every time they were in the same machinery because, despite Oliveira being a multiple-time race winner, because Oliveira just throws in a good weekend here and there. I was double-checking that I'm right on saying that, but I'm almost certain I am, apart from maybe rookie year. But Oliveira has never been Mr. Consistency.
No,
and that for me is all the more reason to not judge anything from one good weekend.
Judging it on vibes rather than stats, which tends to be my preference, I just summarise Trackhouse as Oliveira, do something more often. Fernandez, do something. Stop just being an abstract concept of an exciting young rider who just exists as a reputation of something awesome, but just show us. Just do a performance so I can look at it and go, oh yeah, that's what they were all talking about. A whole weekend performance where you stay on the bike at the end of it as well. Just do that once, and then I'll start agreeing. But what do I know? I'm not running a team. I'm just shouting into a microphone. I think
Simon is generally correct on the points assessment of Oliveira versus Binder. There's been some seasons where it's been quite large. And when I say some, I mean one. And then there's been another where it's, maybe not so meaningful, but still enough to draw conclusions from. Yeah, for me, the Oliveira consistency thing is like almost its own podcast. And we don't have time for that. We have a Patreon and stuff. So
I'm not sure I'm going to allow a whole podcast about Oliveira's consistency. You'd have to fight me pretty hard for that, or wait till I'm on holiday and just sneak it through without me noticing.
Or sign a lot of Portuguese fans up to the members club.
Yeah, okay. If we see an influx of Portugal, I know Simon is your favourite MotoGP journalist. If we see a big influx of Portuguese member sign-ups, we are doing that Miguel Oliveira special. The other thing I want to talk about Aprilia and Rivola, and this made me dig back into the race's archive a little bit. I sometimes worry/wonder if we give Aprilia too easy a ride, because they are a great fairy tale story. Rivola is an affable presence. They are very media friendly. And we have been consistently positive about them a lot of the time. Like I've found an article I roughly remembered from our first 2 weeks of existence entitled "Why MotoGP's Worst Bike is About to Surprise You," and that was after Aprilia's really quite decent 2020 winter test that kind of started to make it look like a more of a serious team. Now, on the flip side of the "are we too nice about Aprilia," I also thought, well, hang on, Simon went after the Andrea Rianoni doping case like an attack dog with a science degree. We published things that Sam Lowe said about Aprilia. We've drawn attention to their inability to get a title chase over the line, and quite often we've said that neither of their riders is good enough in the last couple of years. So it's we've been balanced, I would say, but I still can't help but have a fondness for this really good underdog story that Aprilia is, because I absolutely love the fact that the biggest challenge to Ducati's supremacy in contract negotiations and on track is this team that was a joke that no one wants to race for 5 years ago.
And here's a context for the fondness. This is the team with, probably the second best bike on the grid, a bike that's absolutely good enough to win on certain weekends. And it's a team that did not have the financial pull nor the reputation to pull Fabio Quartararo from an M1 that scores 2 points a season. That's the context of Aprilia's existence. And in that sense, we are not too harsh on Aprilia at all. What they are doing with what they've had historically, with where they've come from, is, I think, still brilliant, even if they never reach the summit. Even if Jorge Martin is just a 4-win-a-season guy for the next 2 years of his contract, and then finds himself a KTM that by that point is ready to win, I will not think less of Aprilia. And if they somehow do reach the summit, I will think even higher. I also feel the frustration, right? And then I look at the Japanese bikes and I do not feel it anymore. It is incredible how much better the RSGP is now than the M1 and the RC213V compared to 6 years ago. It's mental.
There's 3 other factories in MotoGP that would bite your hand off to only be a 4-win-a-season manufacturer at the minute.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Good summary. So, I'll stick with that. We'll carry on being nice about Aprilia, and we'll carry on enjoying the access they give us. Thank you so much, Aprilia, for arranging that. Thank you so much, Massimo Rivola, for your time. Thank you, listeners, for listening to it. And thank you, the Race Members Club, for throwing the questions in for the bonus episode that will be out later this week as well. Your questions are shaping something else we're doing later in the gap. We'll be back. Well, let's see if any rider signings happen.
Please no.
It's
Please no.
2024, so we keep having a plan, and then we keep recording podcasts, and we keep re-recording podcasts, and so I'm trying not to do that at the moment. But Simon was at the World Superbikes at Donington last weekend, and particularly in the Women's World Championship paddock, gathering some interviews for a discussion on that, which will take place partly in our main feed, and we're doing a special standalone episode for the Members Club on the Women's Series as well. We'll be talking about a few of the things going on outside MotoGP in Moto2, because there are quite a few questions about who might come up either next year or the year after, and just generally taking stock of all the news that's rumbling around at the moment as MotoGP takes summer break number 2. So unless we get blown away by a rider signing out of the blue, who knows, next week we could be saying Toprak Razgatlioglu signed for whoever. We'll be back talking about
Augusta.
Okay, that's next week's theme. Toprak and MV Augusta. See you next week,
MV Augusto, the Augusto Fernandez team that gets started up with his KTM salary.
That's how Fernandez is staying on the grid. Like the other week when Augusto Fernandez goes, don't think I've got any options in MotoGP. I was a little bit like, yeah, did you need to say that out loud? Anyway,
You're going to do a seat swap.
Hey, how dare you?
After being so fond of a team and an underdog, I've ended things on a sour note. Apologies to everyone. Back in your ears next week.
The Athletic.